You know, I think it's good. They got documented the other day. Look at it over again. You know, good street now, going.
Yeah.
You know, going west. They took that and bought it way out.
They did.
I ain't.
No, yeah. That's
Yeah, I want to say something about it. I don't see it. I want to tell you something today. I can't remember his name. The guy. Shape I hit, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's barely a page.
All right, it is June 16th, 5:45 p.m. We're gonna call this finance committee meeting to order. Present are council members Barker, Cost, Hauser, and Marmy, and Neely is sitting in for Chu. First item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to apply for financial support from the Licking Park District Government Partnership Program.
Okay, this resolution addresses a lot of money. The city is eligible to apply for. It is a 50-50 match. And we would like to apply for $120,545.64, and local match would be the same amount for the new West Canal Park next to Newark Station.
Motion by Barker, second by Hauser. Questions and or comments? Are we allowed in kind or anything like that for our matching portion?
I would have to look into that. Whether we could do that.
Okay. It doesn't have to, can we also have donations also?
Well, we have donations. We do
Okay.
have some donations, and depending on where we're at,
Mhm.
we may be able to apply some of those donations
Okay.
towards that match.
Very good, very good, thank you. Any additional questions and or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor send this on full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Next item is a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to prepare and submit applications to the Ohio Department of Public Safety for fiscal year 2025 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant funding.
The Division of Police would like to apply for this funding. Right now, they're discussing possible equipment.
Motion. Second. Motion by Barker, second by Hauser. Questions and or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor send this on full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Next item is a resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Newark to enter into a community development block grant funded subrecipient agreement with the hereinafter named organizations to carry out activities included within Newark's fiscal year 2025 Community Development Block Grant 1-year action plan.
This legislation allows us to enter into a subrecipient contract with area nonprofits. The following nonprofits: Behavioral Healthcare Partners, St. Vincent de Paul, St. Vincent Havens, the Woodlands New Beginning, Salvation Army will all receive $5,000 for this year. Together We Grow will receive $6,500. Licking County Coalition for Housing will be 2 contracts, one for rental payments, $5,000. The other for our major project that we initiated last year, security deposits, $48,000. The final subrecipient agreement will be with Newark Development Partners, the CIC, $110,000.
Second.
Motion by Barker, second by Hauser. Questions and or comments? Comment? Oh, we just made the motion. Oh, sorry. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, send this on full council, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation amount of $700.
Good evening. This is in reference to one of our probationers under supervision shows the damage there in the scram device, so they paid us back $700.
Motion. Second. Motion by Barker, second by Hauser. Questions and or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, send us on full council, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. With that, this finance committee meeting stands adjourned. Next up is safety.
I would like to call the safety committee meeting to order. Present are members myself, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Cost, Ms. Blind, Mr. Hauser, and Mr. Rath. This evening, we don't have any legislation that we're voting on. We're just learning more about legislation that's happening in the State House. I'd like to invite one of our state representatives, Kevin Miller, to the podium. If you could, state your name and address for the record and share with us your legislation you are working on in the House.
Excellent, thank you. Kevin Miller, 6170 Pleasant Chapel, that's Newark 43056. And thanks to the council for inviting me to come and talk about House Bill 247, this Avery's law that's making its way through the General Assembly. And I guess the easiest way to go about this is just kind of tell exactly what it does. But before I do that, I guess I'll explain how we got there or how we got here. So late last year, early this year, I started having some conversations with the Licking County Dog Warden, who told me that our dangerous and vicious dog laws are just way out of bounds. They are not where they need to be. Additionally, the code section that deals with all, whether it's licensing, all the dog related issues, is very unuser friendly. The first thing that we do with this legislation is it's actually a rewrite of the entire 955 Ohio Revised Code section. It makes it more user friendly, makes it much organizational and housekeeping changes in there. And as I said, this is an issue for our dog wardens across the state and also for our prosecutors. So it's actually able to engage with the law director and get feedback on the bill as well. So that's the first thing it addresses. The second thing it does is it allows our dog wardens to immediately seize a dog when there's an incident involving a dangerous or a vicious happening. So we're talking about a serious dog bite. Under current law, unless a dog is already designated as a dangerous or a vicious dog, so they had a previous incident. If they have an incident, the dog warden cannot immediately seize them, because they have to have had a previous incident. So basically, they call this a one free bite. What this bill does is it eliminates that. So what happens is if there's a significant incident, the dog warden shows up, the dog warden has the ability to immediately seize that dog. Now, the important part of the legislation is there's a process put in place, due process for our folks. So once it's seized, there has to be a probable cause hearing within 10 days. So we're not just taking people's dogs and making unilateral decisions. There's a process that's put in place for this. The third thing it does is it increases penalties for owners of designated dogs who fail to contain and control their nuisance, dangerous, and vicious dogs. So what that means is we're talking about the repeat offenders, okay? So we're talking about folks who, once again, had those dogs previously designated, and they still fail to control those dogs. So what we've done is we've increased penalties in all those various aspects there. And in the most egregious situations, so if there's a death, it increases it from a 4th-degree felony to a 3rd-degree felony. The next thing that we do is we require dogs that cause serious injury. So we're talking about disfigurement, very serious injuries, and or death to be put down. Under current law, that's authorized, permissible by the judge. What this bill does is says, no, if it's determined that they committed that act, the dog will be put down. We have to look out for public safety, and these dogs need to be removed from the situation. Some other things that the bill does is it strengthens the requirements for our dangerous and vicious dog owners. So currently, the judge can order $100,000 of liability insurance for these dog owners. My bill takes away that discretion again. It says if you're going to own one of these dogs, one of these designated dogs, you're gonna carry insurance, in the case that something happens. It also amends the mandatory fencing language. So currently, it just says that there has to be a fence. Well, a snow fence for a pit bull probably is not sufficient. So what this does is it says that, the fence should be sufficiently constructed to prevent escapes. So that gives our dog wardens the ability to say, hey, this is not sufficient. As of right now, as long as there's a fence of any type, they don't have the ability to do that. So it's empowering them once again. The next thing that it deals with is it adds language to require designated dogs be confined while indoors when there is an invitee or a guest on premises. And where that's different from right now is there are no requirements once the dog is in the house, okay? And that may not necessarily be an issue until the neighbor's kids come over to the house. And that dog is not confined to a room. So what this bill says is if someone is going to be in the house, that's an invitee or a guest, if you will, that dog must be confined. Once again, to protect the public in the houses. We also increase the fees if you're going to have one of these types of dogs. So it's currently $50. We double that. It's going to be $100. And those fees go directly to fund our dog warden as well, which has additional responsibilities for these dogs. They have to do inspections and things like that, follow up on the licensing. And then the last thing that we have is it requires notification of a dog designation to veterinarians and trainers who might come in contact with one of these dogs. So for instance, if one of these dogs that was a dangerous or vicious dog was sent to training someplace, a lot of times training is done with other dogs. And if someone doesn't tell the trainer that, they don't know that. So perhaps there will be steps that they would take place in order to ensure the safety of those other dogs. So we mandate that that's done as well. So this bill has had several hearings. We're actually going to drop another sub bill tomorrow on this with some minor changes. We've got support of the Prosecutors Association, the American Kennel Club, Nationwide Children's Hospital, the Ohio Dog Wardens Association, and the Commissioners Association as well. So a lot of support. As of right now, I don't have any opponents to the bill. So we're hoping to get it voted on in committee and possibly even on the House floor here before we break. So with that being said, I know I rambled on a lot of things. There's actually some other things in here as well that I'd be here all night if I went through everything, but I'll ask if there's any questions I might be able to answer.
It was you did a fine job, explaining the legislation. Does the committee have any questions there?
I do. One of our local loopholes is once a dog has been obtained by the dog catcher or dog catcher by animal control, the owner has the ability to bail them out. What happens in that circumstance?
Well, it would depend on the circumstances, okay? So if it was just a nuisance, perhaps it was running at large and there was no bite or anything like that, and they didn't seize it because of a specific instance, I'm assuming, I didn't change the process in that, so the dog would still be released if they pay the fines or whatever that would be. In the case of, a serious injury, and or death or something like that, that dog is held to that probable cause hearing. So there's a hearing, that's mandated, and that dog cannot be released until that's up.
Now, in terms of injury, you said that serious injury might be designated as disfigurement, something along that line, but if they have lacerations where there's serious blood loss or broken bones, how is that? And even resulting trauma where the victim has to be in therapy for sometimes years.
So great question. So it goes specific to the definition. So it says exactly what, it defines exactly what serious injury is versus just something like you said, like a dog bite without breaking bones or things like that. Serious physical injury is breaking bones, disfigurement, laceration that requires I didn't want to quote it, sitting there right in front of me, but there's a defined instance at which it designates.
Mr. Rath.
Would you define serious as any dog bite that would be above the shoulders? Regardless of the severity?
The law does not do that as written. What we try to do is stay within the confines of what we had and address the penalties.
Okay, let me reconsider that. You are saying dangerous and vicious dogs as if they're synonymous. Are they or are they not? How do you distinguish between the two?
They are not, and I'll give you a list of exactly what determines.
Reader's Digest version is fine.
A vicious dog is a dog that kills a person, causes serious physical injury, engages in dangerous dog act after designated as a dangerous dog. Now you need to know what a dangerous is to know how it bumps up. So a dangerous dog causes injury by physical contact. So in your instance, just a dog bite without serious physical would be a dangerous dog, which is still a significant, which requires the insurance, requires the additional fencing and things of that nature. So back to dangerous dog, cause injury by physical contact, kills another dog or livestock, or causes serious injury to another dog or livestock. And then the last designation, which is a nuisance dog, causes injury without physical contact, chasing or in a menacing fashion or an apparent attitude of attack, attempting to bite any person, chasing, threatening, harassing the dog, livestock, or running at large 3 different times. Those are the 3 different types of dog designations.
Is there any provision for loss if a person has sustained a loss of their animal, or they would have to go through surgery, the animal would have to go through surgery? Is there any compensation that's required from the other dog?
Sure, so not in the bill, but it doesn't change what you can do civil. So that would be typically be a civil action that the person would file against the dog owner.
Two extra. Are there any provisions allow or addressing the quantity of dangerous or vicious dogs within a household?
No, they're not. They're not.
Okay, I know in the past, before we changed a lot of stuff in Newark, there was a limit to 1 vicious dog per household. You're not allowed to have 2 or more.
So to clarify, what I'm doing is the revised code on the state level with home rule. The council.
I'm not trying to compare, I understand that.
Okay.
I'm just maybe suggesting you might want to consider that. And then, do you have any provisions for dogs that may have caused injury or harm in the process of protecting residences, people, livestock, things of that nature?
Yep, so, good question. So there are provisions in the bill that carve that out. So what you have to show is that, matter of fact, we clarified in several sections saying it's in an apparent and aggressive, attack mode for all. So, and that all deals with being provoked and or protecting, that would be an unprovoked. If someone trespasses, then the dog, bites because there's a trespasser. Those are the things that they would consider, the trier of fact would consider, and that would be an exception.
Mr. Costa, get a question.
Should I assume there's no breed, so everything's all breeds of dogs or?
Correct. The legislation is not breed specific. My understanding is several years back, there was legislation that was breed specific, and I believe it was ruled unconstitutional, which is why it was then changed back to address behavior as opposed to a specific breed.
Any other questions from the audience? Mr. Barr, yes.
Yeah, one of the biggest, I want to say obstacles has been enforcement. Who's gonna enforce it? Who's gonna make sure that they have the insurance? Who's gonna make sure of this or that? I know that our animal control, their taxed very heavy. And so how we address the enforcement issue of this to make sure that we increase and make sure that we actually follow up those things. The insurance has been the biggest one.
So the way the bill is written, it still leaves all of enforcement to either the dog warden or in some cases in some counties. So the way it works across the state of Ohio as far as who enforces these laws is it first goes to the commissioners to designate a dog warden. If the commissioners don't want to appoint a dog warden, it falls back on the sheriff's office, who then is essentially tasked with enforcing these laws. So it varies among counties. Most counties actually have dog wardens. I think there's actually only like 4 where the sheriff's office does that, but it falls back on them. Now, what I will say is that there's some areas, and this isn't a dig at the dog wardens, but there's some counties where they weren't responding to these types of issues and incidents appropriately, I guess you might say. So we actually put a provision in here where the dog warden can be held responsible. It's a minor misdemeanor, but if they fail to enforce sections of this law, it's a minor misdemeanor.
Mr. Hedger.
Did you adjust some of the licensing, or did you write to adjust the licensing fees to give additional rights to potential defund dog work departments? Is that right in the bill? Or?
We increased for the dangerous, that helped. Gotcha. So in that, the designations vary on counties. Some counties, more active with that, and it all surrounds about whether dog bites are reported. A lot of dog bites are not reported. And that's an issue. I will tell you, I met with Nationwide Children's, and we want to talk about, how big of an issue this is. It's a huge issue. Just at Nationwide, they handle over 400 dog bites a year, just in Columbus. So it's a huge issue that needs to be addressed.
One final question. So it's currently in committee, correct? So what is the timeline if it goes out of committee to go on to the state? So on and so forth.
Sure. So if it gets out of committee tomorrow, I'd like to see it on the floor on Wednesday. That would be nice. At that point, it would go over to the Senate.
Okay.
There's a companion bill that has been introduced over there. It's had sponsored testimony. Essentially, he's announced, and it's public, that he said my bill is going to be the vehicle. So essentially, once it goes to the Senate, then we kind of go through the same process again. The Senate may have their spin or their tweaks or the things that they may want to do to it. If they make some changes, it will then come back to the House for a concurrent vote. And then hopefully it'll get signed by the governor. So I say all that to say, I would like to see this across the finish line by the end of the year.
I know that, anytime we have legislation like this, there's always a lot of questions. So if anyone has any questions beyond this evening or comment, how can they best get a hold of you?
Yeah, so a couple things, they can email, probably the best way is to email my office. So it's rep69@ohiohouse.gov, rep69@ohiohouse.gov. Or they can call my office, 614-466-2500. 614-466-2500.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming this evening. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank
Obviously-
you.
Obviously, we're not voting on anything here, you're just sharing. But I appreciate you coming in this evening and sharing with us. And where it's that will, adjourn the safety committee. Next up is economic development.
I'm gonna open the Economic Development Committee. President, Cost, Hauser, Barker, Roberta, and Neely. Agenda tonight is to consider ordinance number 25-18 and ordinance amending portions of the current articles of the zoning code of the city of Newark, Ohio, adopted May 5th, 2009 by ordinance 08-33A and September 5th, 2023 by ordinance 23-22A and September 16th, 2024 by ordinance 24-18A, implementing additional articles of the zoning code of the city of Newark, Ohio.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
There is one provision in the zoning code that we think we ought to consider to change. And that is in the downtown commercial zoning district. There are no parking requirements at all in the downtown commercial. And we think that with some of the development ideas that have been tossed around, that there ought to be some parking requirements. It should at least be considered along with the rest of the code. So the proposal is to eliminate that portion in the downtown commercial code that has no parking requirements.
Any questions, committee?
Make a motion.
Second.
This would be like a zoning change, and we go to planning commission, public hearing, and then back to you after a recommendation on planning commission.
Is there something that you're looking for specifically, or?
It's just to delete that portion in the code that exempts the downtown commercial district from having any parking requirements. We think the DC district ought to comply with the rest of the districts and have at least minimal parking requirements. That the other districts have.
Mr. Chair. So this is gonna affect the businesses.
It would affect new proposed businesses that would come in, say, you know, a business comes in across the street and there are no setbacks in the downtown district. Somebody could build a business, you know, encompassing the entire parcel of land, and have, you know, maybe hundreds of tenants or people in there and not have any parking requirements to go along with that. I think that's just not probably proper going forward.
Thank you.
Direct kind of follow-up question there. So let's just say, like, typically speaking for parking requirements like that, like, how far would the parking need to be for the facility? So let's say someone does build a significant facility down, like a parking garage has a lot of things. I'm just curious how that ties together.
There is provision in there, in the existing code that allows for a off-site parking to be proposed. It requires an agreement between the property owners. And so that is all part of the zoning approval.
Any questions? Any questions out of the audience? Go to. Want to move this on to full council? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, no? Okay, let's move on to full council. 5-0 vote. Thank you very much. That's all we've got for economic development. Thank you.
Got it.
Sir.